This sound made me jump out of my chair. Why? Well, there is more than one reason, but let's start from the beginning. This is the only 386 motherboard I have at this moment. You may have seen the video where I removed the corrosion caused by a leaky battery and restored the affected traces. While working on this motherboard, I came across this page in the manual. This board supports up to 32 MB of memory. And although I have plenty of those 30-pin SIMM modules, the maximum capacity I could configure so far is 8 MB, because all my modules are 1 MB each. I may sound unreasonable, but wouldn't it be cool to equip this board with the maximum amount of memory? Recently, I also fought with this 32 MB memory module. One of the total 16 chips was faulty and rendered the entire module useless. After 3 videos, when this odyssey finally came to an end, I was left with 15 working memory chips and 1 faulty one. Coincidentally, I have those PCBs laying around, which, with the right memory chips equipped, fit perfectly into the 386 motherboard. I guess you can tell by now that I have started to plan this project quite a while ago. In today's video, you will see how the good chips from the faulty memory module get a new life and serve as memory for my AMD 386 DX40. As I said, I planned this project since restoring the 386 motherboard. And now, with the spare memory chips, I can finally create my own 30-pin, high-capacity memory modules. Luckily, someone already designed PCBs for those SIMM modules and uploaded them to GitHub for everyone to use as they please. UpLateGeek provides schematics, Gerber files, and even a bill of materials which list memory chips that are compatible with the PCB and the 386 platform. From the datasheet of one of those chips, we learn that they are 4M by 4-bit CMOS dynamic RAM with fast page mode, or FPM chips. As far as I know, 386 systems support fast page mode memory only. The improved version, better known as EDO or Extended Data Out, was introduced in 1994, when the first Pentium processors for Socket 4 were already available. The memory chips I have desoldered from the faulty module have the correct memory organizations, are pin compatible and have the correct dimensions, but unfortunately they are EDO chips. I could not find a datasheet for these specific memory chips, but there are plenty of datasheets available for chips with a similar model number. On the first page, we can read that this chip supports the Extended Data Out access mode. So it is no wonder that you won't find my chips on the bill of materials from UpLateGeek. I am fully aware that I may waste a lot of time if those chips are incompatible, but I will explain soon why I believe that it should be possible to use EDO chips on 386 motherboards. I want to thank UpLateGeek for providing those designs for free to the community. You will find a link to the Git repository in the video description. I already ordered 10 PCBs from PCBWay for $5 plus shipping, this time in blue. I am glad I checked what the standard thickness of the SIMM modules is before I placed the order. The sources I found mention a thickness of 1.2 mm, and I can confirm that this thickness worked for me. Luckily, it is very easy to pick the correct thickness on PCBWay's website. I already used yellow for revision 1.0 of the Voodoo Memory Mod, and red for revision 1.1. You will find links to PCBWay's website and their shared project space from where you can order your PCBs directly in the video description. Each module will have a capacity of 4 MB and 8 data lines, basically an 8-bit module. A 386 CPU has a 32-bit wide data bus, through the chipset to the memory banks. Therefore, we need to populate 4 SIMMs per bank to fill the entire data bus to the CPU. With 4 of those modules, the CPU will have access to 16 MB of system memory. When both memory banks are populated, the CPU has access to 32 MB. Today, we will create 4 modules only, with a total capacity of 16 MB. The 30-pin SIMM PCBs have space for 3 chips. 2 chips store data, and 1 chip stores information for parity checks. Unfortunately, I do not have the correct parity chips available, but the good thing is that they are optional. So our newly created 4 MB SIMM modules will be non-parity. What is not so optional are the capacitors next to the memory chips. I am not an electrical engineer, but I assume they are used to stabilize the power supply to the memory chips. Next to each memory chip is space for a 100 nanofarad capacitor. The package type is 1206, which defines its dimensions. Oh, look at that, I got a few 50 nanofarad capacitors too. So why do I believe that this 386 motherboard works with those EDO chips? During my research, I found a page that claims that FPM and EDO are architecturally identical. The difference is introduced during packaging when the die is connected to the pins. There may be some additional circuitry involved, but EDO and FPM memory dies are very similar, if not identical, as the information on this website states. So technically, an EDO chip should be capable to behave like an FPM chip. Furthermore, when I debugged the faulty EDO memory module, I paired it once with this memory module from IBM. This is a true fast page mode memory module with a capacity of 32 MB. When those two modules are paired, the EDO module operates in FPM mode. You can see here that when I boot a Socket 7 platform with one EDO and one FPM module, the configuration summary reports that none of the memory banks is populated with EDO memory. Speedsus specifically mentions that it detected FPM memory. Saying that the memory modules are operating in FPM mode may be technically incorrect. It probably is better to say that the memory controller accesses both modules in fast page mode, which seems to be supported by the EDO module. For comparison, if I populate the memory bank with two EDO modules, the configuration summary reports EDO memory to be present in memory bank 0, and Speedsus confirms the presence of EDO memory as well, also with a higher bandwidth compared to FPM memory. And I'm done. 4 modules with 2 chips each for a total of 16 MB EDO memory. Let's put them into a 386 board and see if they work. Unfortunately, the board doesn't boot. It always gets stuck at postcode 04. I couldn't find any information that would explain what the problem is, but I think it is safe to say and quite obvious that the new memory modules are the culprit. I replaced the new modules with 1 MB modules to see how the board would behave with working memory. Those were either 2 short beeps and then another 8 short beeps, or 1 long beep and 8 short beeps. The diagnostic card came with a small booklet with post and beep codes. 2 short beeps mean hardware test has failed, and 8 short beeps mean something wrong with the graphics card. Well, that makes a lot of sense because I do not have a graphic card installed. 1 long beep and 8 short beeps point to a similar problem. So, with known good memory, the board posts and beeps at us. With the new modules, the board gets stuck somewhere before in the boot process. At this time, the project would have been over for me. But luckily, you guys are awesome. A random conversation in the comments under one of my videos revealed the information I needed to overcome this showstopper. I am somehow convinced that this information may not be readily available and you may have never heard about what is about to follow. Here is the hack required to turn an EDO memory chip into an FPM memory chip. And I give credit where credit is due. RT9M. Thank you so much for the information you provided. You were spot on and your hack made this video possible. The hack provided by RT9M involves 2 pins, OE and CUS. CUS was already discussed in my previous videos. OE stands for Output Enable, and while the name may be self-explanatory, the bar above the pin label may not. As I understand, this bar means that the function the pin controls is active low, meaning when the voltage is low, the feature is active. In case of Output Enable, the chip outputs data when voltage on this pin is low. It will stop outputting data when the voltage is high. In the first video where I tried to find the faulty memory chip, I mentioned how an 11-bit address bus is enough to send 22 address bits. It essentially works like this. The first 11 address bits are sent to the chip and confirmed by sending the RUS signals from a high voltage to a low voltage. That is because RUS is a pin which also has a bar over the label, so active low. Then the memory controller will send the next 11 bits to the address pins of the memory chip and send CUS to a low voltage afterwards, thus activating it. Now the chip has all the information it needs to find the correct 4 data bits in the internal memory arrays. Once the data is found, it is placed on the data pins of the chip. The data disappears once CUS is sent to a high voltage, but only for fast page memory. As you can see, extended data out or EDO chips keep the data valid until the next block of data is available, regardless of the CUS signal. If we could force the EDO chip to stop data out when CUS is sent high, then we have an FPM chip. And this is where the output enable pin comes into play. Output enable controls when data is present. At the moment, this pin is connected to ground, so it is always low and always active. Therefore, as I understand, data will always be present, unless internal logic prevents it, for instance when RUS is high. As you can see in the diagram, in fast page mode, the data output follows the CAS signal closely. When CAS goes low, after a short while, data is present. When CAS goes high, after a short while, data is no longer present. So, if the output enable pin is controlled similar to CAS, we should be able to get the same functionality as an FPM chip. And this is what RT9M told me. Lift the pin OE, which stands for output enable. This pin is currently connected to ground. After that, bridge pin OE with pin CAS to control the data output with a CAS signal. And that is all there is. This is the entire hack to turn an EDO chip into an FPM chip. Unlucky for me, I had to desolder all the chips again, clean the PCBs and start over. But this was so worth a try. Once the boards were clean, I used some Kapton tape to cover the pad below the output enable pin so it no longer connects to ground. Then I needed to resolder all chips, leaving this one pin unsoldered. By the way, if you're curious as well, I tested the modules with pin OE disconnected only, but there was no change. The board still wouldn't boot. Okay then, let's apply the second part of the hack. Connect pin OE to CAS. Luckily, CAS and OE are right next to each other, so all I have to do is to bridge both pins with a nice little solder blob. Right, left, center. Left, right, center. Left, right, center. With all 4 modules modified, let's test it once again. Now would be a good time to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It is fascinating how this little information from RT9M opened my eyes and made me understand a bit more about those memory chips. What about you? Did you know that you can modify EDO chips to behave like FPM chips? I guess the title of this video is not entirely correct. This 386 motherboard does not work with EDO memory, but with modified EDO memory that behaves like FPM memory it does. Do you think that this is a little gem of knowledge and should be passed on to thousands of other people who may not know that this is possible? This reminds me and is very similar to the Voodoo Memory Mod, just a few lines of text that provide so much value. If you are aware of simple hacks that aren't too difficult to implement, let me know. I may end up making a video about it. Now, I obviously tested this memory extensively with Memtest 86+, and I can confirm that it did pass one entire round, but it took an eternity to reach to this point. I think I let it run for about 4 hours. I also tested the memory using SpeedSys. No complaints from this tool as well. So, what will be the next steps? I am still waiting for real FPM chips, which will hopefully arrive very soon. Then we can check if there is any performance difference between those modified EDO chips and real FPM chips. And with 32 MB of memory, I may attempt to install Windows 95 on this 386 DX40. With this ridiculous amount of memory, we may also attempt to create a RAM drive in DOS. So much more stuff for the future. But for now, we have reached the end of this video. If you want to support this channel and help me fund more projects like this, you can check out my Patreon page and become a member. You guys are awesome and I really appreciate your support. You can also comment, give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, so you will not miss any future videos with interesting content like in today's episode. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video.